On this episode of History Hunters, Jeff and Sarah check out historic Virginia City, Nevada, the silver mining boom town. Join us on this, the second of 3 episodes on Virginia City, as the couple visits famous C Street and the St. Mary's of the Mountain Catholic Church built in the 1860s.
Sarah's resting against this foundation, this building, just made by rocks, cemented together, and top of that bricks, top of that wood. Have we gone back in time?
Absolutely. We've gone forward.
This is a very cool building over here, like a hardware store. There's a bad hombre behind me whipping people from the streets. Look at that guy. I think there's got to be a fight right here in town.
Go! 1, 2! Wait! Ow! What the heck's your problem, kid? Don't miss the first comedy gunfight of the day. It's at 1 o'clock, folks, right up here on the left. The young whippersnapper is here.
There's an angle to make money everywhere in this town. Commercial enterprises. This is the Nevada Bank of San Francisco, 1862. It's now one of my favorite shops. Full of signs. There you go. Johnny Cash flipping off the camera from Folsom Prison. Oh, these are fake to make them look old. A&W root beer. Order me up. Just about any sign you can think of back here. Mickey Mouse up here, barn dance. I have a feeling Mark Twain would get a kick out of the fact that in 2018 his image is being sold on posters. So we're waiting here at the Red Dog Saloon to have pizza. And I think I lost my appetite. So my son just sent me an app that shows how I'm gonna look when I'm like 90. Lost my appetite.
The Red Dog Saloon, formerly the Comstock House Gambling Hall, played a role in the history of the psychedelic music scene. In the 1960s, it was known for its drug-fueled musical concerts. The Charlatans were the first psychedelic rock band to play live while on LSD. That gig inspired the San Francisco hippie revolution.
Very cool historic buildings over there. There's a jackass that somebody wants to make money with by having pictures taken with. This has been a tourist trap for a number of years, probably since the 40s, 50s, and 60s. When people started to realize the nostalgia that's here. The Ponderosa Ranch. Obviously, this area is known as the Bonanza for all the mining. But Bonanza TV show was not filmed here.
Debuting in 1959, Bonanza was situated on Ben Cartwright's fictional Ponderosa Ranch on the northeastern shore of Lake Tahoe. The show ran 14 seasons, making Bonanza NBC's longest-running Western. The show's popularity prompted the building of a theme park, with a ranch house replica in 1965 near Incline Village. 15 episodes were shot there.
It was known as the Bonanza here because of the silver mining, but also because this was also the Comstock Lode. The Comstock Lode was named after Henry Comstock, who came in 1859 and purchased some holdings here, and he found a lot of gold, and by the time he sold it, he was a rich man. This is the Bonanza Saloon and the Bonanza Cafe. Sarah's over here in front of the Silver Queen Saloon and Hotel.
Mark Twain's in here.
Okay. In the early 1860s, the Territorial Enterprise newspaper office was located in this building. Mark Twain worked here from 1862 to 1864, as you can see inside there, hopefully. There's Mark Twain holding copies of the Territorial Enterprise. It's got to be noted that Mark Twain was a newspaper reporter, but because there wasn't a lot to write about, at times he would make up stuff. He would make up murders, suicides, and he upset a lot of people by doing that, because obviously newspaper reporters are supposed to report the truth, and he was just making up stuff. He actually started learning how to write fiction in this area. It's still kind of difficult to believe that the International Hotel was right here, put it up right next to that building there, and was such a grand hotel. I don't know how it did not survive, but it was probably the most majestic building here in Virginia City. Now the side of a parking lot where they charge $7 to park all day. It's kind of crazy how time does that to a place. Just wipes it off the face of the earth. The first hotel was a 14-room wood structure built in 1860 and dismantled in 1863. A second hotel, a 100-room, 4-story brick building, was destroyed by the Great Fire of October 1875. The third one opened March 1877 with 160 rooms and 6 floors, complete with hot and cold running water, steam, heat, gas lighting, and the first hydraulic elevator in Nevada. 2 blocks east of here, well, it's a Chinese community of almost 2,000 people who came to Nevada to do some mining. A lot of them, I understand, came here after they were finished building the Transcontinental Railroad between California and the Midwest. So the next block up there is the old Piper's Opera House, where prostitute Julia Boulay attended a production the night she was murdered. When she refused to take a seat in the designated area for the ladies of the night, she was escorted out. She walked down this street, Union Street, to have dinner with a friend near her home at the corner of D and Union. That night, on January 19th or early January 20th, 1867, she was bludgeoned to death by someone who stole her jewelry. Over there is the Bucket of Blood Saloon. So the world famous Bucket of Blood Saloon is right behind me. I went in there and took a look at it. It's just your typical bar and saloon and a couple of slot machines in there. But yeah, I never thought that the Bucket of Blood sounded like an appetizing place to have a beer. I love the narrow, tall brick buildings that are still here. At the top you can see they're almost crumbling. Having all the miners in this area, they often drown their sorrows in beer. And so there were a ton of saloons in this area. It looks like the Delta Saloon is closed. I believe this is where the suicide table was. I believe the famous suicide table was moved to a different location. But the famous Delta Saloon is closed. It says here the first saloon was rebuilt after the big fire of 1875. Gotta love the old ornate work on these old doors. So I found out that the famous suicide table has been moved from the Delta Saloon. Delta closed because of an explosion, and it's been moved to the Bonanza. So I'm gonna go on the Bonanza here and see if I can find the suicide table.
He just takes the tractor another round and pulls a plow across the trail.
There's the suicide table. Supposedly, people killed themselves over the losses at this table. It says that 3 owners have reportedly committed suicide because of heavy losses over the table. Originally a faro bank table brought to Virginia City in the early 1860s. Wow. Gives a history of the things that happen when people go overboard and lose a lot of money. It's a pretty beat up table. I've heard about this suicide table since the 1960s when I first came here to Virginia City as a kid. So I'm going to go across the street and show you the newer Territorial Enterprise office where Mark Twain did not work. So Mark Twain actually left Virginia City in 1864, and this building over here was put in place about that time. So don't think that Mark Twain actually worked in this building, but they're billing it as where he worked, the Territorial Enterprise building. Up there it says 1858 established, but it was not in this building. My understanding, again, is that Mark Twain left after this building was put in place. So as you see here on this plaque, dedicated in 1964 by the publisher of the Territorial Enterprise, Sam Clemens left this area and moved to California, where he did some mining in the Tuolumne County area. He was a reporter here from 1863 when he first used the pen name Mark Twain. He later described his colorful adventures in Nevada and roughing it. But again, my understanding is that he had already left by the time this was here. Everybody's capitalizing on the name of Mark Twain. Obviously, this is an important area because this is where his writing career began. This is the side of the Territorial Enterprise newspaper office. But again, I think Mark Twain had left in 1864 when this building was actually finished and became the newspaper office. This plaque down here talks about Dan DeQuille, one of the early writers with Mark Twain. Over here, this white building, is the Mark Twain Casino. I wonder what Mark would have thought about his name being used for a saloon. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he drank, but he was a strange character. He liked to make up a lot of stuff. He could also dish out a lot of the kidding, but he couldn't take it. In fact, when he came back to this area, I believe it was 1868, they staged a robbery as he was coming over this mountain. They stole his watch. He thought it was a real robbery, and he found out later that the joke was played on him, and he was extremely pissed off. Sometimes you have to look low to catch the history of a place. Down here are these old iron-fluted columns that are stamped with the names of the manufacturers. This one here is from the Gold Hill Foundry. And over here is the UI Works of the Truckee and Carson, 1875. It's in front of an apparel shop.
The candy shop, they have barrels of just candy everywhere. And they encourage you to put it in a bucket. They dump it and weigh it. Well, you don't really realize what you're getting until they say $22 worth of root beer barrels. I need a Mark Twain penny.
So there's a Western type hole down here, snapping a whip, scaring the crap out of everybody. He's trying to get people to come to the show. There he is again. See? Making everybody jump. He's made
everybody jumping?
He's made me jump.
Yeah. And you know what's going to happen. You still jump on it.
Some lady called him an asshole. She's saying, if you hurt me, what do I get? In the words of Forrest Gump, sometimes there aren't enough rocks. But I can tell you that's not the case here. There's too many rocks. All kinds of crap you can buy here in this town. The Mark Twain Saloon and Casino. So we're in a saloon. You have to walk in this old vault from 1864. These are safe deposit boxes if you want to destroy your gold. Some silver dollars on there. Bank tellers from 1890 here in this building. Now a saloon. There's the old miner. Going to tell you your fortune or something like that. This is the Ponderosa Saloon where the bank vault is. There's that again. Stockyard. Virginia City original gold car right here. Those bikers are loud. This church behind me is approximately 1876. It was rebuilt after the Great Fire of 1875. It's St. Mary's of the Mountains Catholic Church. So this church was originally built a block south of here, would be over this direction, in 1864. In 1870 they built this brick church, but it was damaged by the fire of 1875, and they had to rebuild on this spot. They actually made it taller than it was. 1876 is when this building was dedicated. And there's the individual who started this church, Montague, way back, 1860s. Wow.
1875.
That fire must have damaged this town quite a bit. And we've been invited to go downstairs to see the Museum of St. Mary's of the Mountains Catholic Church. So I think we're gonna see what's down there right now.
Can you carry me?
No. I would like to be able to carry her.
Yeah, I wish you could too.
So this is a picture of the restoration effort back in 2009. So apparently there were some mad monks of St. Mary's in the 1950s who tore apart the choir loft, the altar, and the balcony, all because they felt that they were too worldly. Here's a kneeler used by Father Patrick Montague. That goes way back, 1870s. So this desk was actually used by Nevada Governor James Nye. We talked about him in the Aurora video. This desk is right here. That's the church in 1864, right there. And of course it burned in 18... No?
This one they just outgrew it, and they built this one, and then when they came to this one, they tore it down.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish they had a picture or a drawing or something, but they don't.
But this church here is 1875.
This church is 1868.
68.
They had the fire, and it burned.
75.
Except for the the masonry part of it.
Sure.
That candelabra and that crucifix and the bell that we use in the bell tower, that survived.
Okay, that's a heavy bell, right?
Yes. Well, here's a picture of it, right there.
So that's what we heard ringing earlier.
Yeah.
Wow. I was fascinated to learn that there's a picture here of John Mackay, who lived in the Mackay mansion. They say it's haunted, but I don't believe in that type of thing. There's a really out-of-place exhibit here, historical exhibit of bricks from Fort Sumter. Of course, Fort Sumter was fired upon during the Civil War. Handmade bricks, isn't that amazing? There's the Ophir Mine Works, Virginia City, that I believe made John Mackay a very wealthy man. So this is the famous Fourth Ward School. It debuted in 1876, and it was supposedly the pride of all the school systems in Nevada. It was designed for about 1,000 students, K through 12. It included modern ventilation systems, had drinking fountains. It had indoor toilets, believe it or not. In 1909, they added the 12th graders, and 1936 they closed this facility, but it produced a lot of great students along the way. In the 1960s, it fell into great disrepair, and I believe that they started restoring it in 1980s. I understand 1,200 feet below me is the Bonanza Mineshaft that produced all the silver of the Bonanza period. Underneath me, this whole hillside is scattered with remnants of silver mining operations. Here's part of the Virginia and Truckee Railroad that dates back to 1869. A newer train station to house this train in here. There it is. It's very hard to see. This building here looks at least 100 years old. It's falling apart. I'm not sure what it is, but it's down the street from the Catholic Church. Right behind the Silver Dollar Saloon was the red light district. On this block once stood the cribs of Virginia City's Sporting Row, they called it. Near this site, in Crib 1, was housed the most celebrated courtesan of the Comstock, Julia Bullitt, mutually murdered January 20th, 1867 for her jewels by John Million. The place where she was murdered was taken down a long time ago. I understand that she's buried way over there on the side of the hill. She was deemed not worthy of being buried with the rest of the townsfolk because of the trade that she was plying. You can't visit this place without sensing the eerie reminder of all those who were here. I think because many buildings they inhabited are still standing. So I came down here thinking this was going to be a historical marker, but it's just a pillar of a building that's no longer here.
The final stop is to check out the lot on C Street, where these early day firemen served.
So earlier I found the grave of Fire Chief George Handbridge. He was chief of the Knickerbocker Engine Company, number 5. And this sign here says it was right here in this vacant lot for sale, which is right across the street from the Red Dog Saloon.
Be sure to catch the next episode of History Hunters when Jeff and Sarah visit the McKay Mansion, reported to be haunted.